All right, so with the primaries fast approaching, it does seem like we could be in for a hypothetical head-to-head showdown relatively early into the primary season, depending really when Ron DeSantis drops out. With Chris Christie already leaving the race, it does seem like it's setting up for a Trump versus Nikki Haley showdown. You do again also have DeSantis there, but if he underperforms in Iowa, he could drop out even after that. And then I've heard two different things in terms of what DeSantis is going to do. Some people saying he might endorse Nikki Haley, other people saying he'll endorse Trump. I think he will endorse Trump. I understand you could make the argument, like Vivek Ramaswamy is saying, that because he's controlled by his donors, he would endorse Haley and be her VP, but that seems like it would be very bad in terms of his future. Imagine he endorses Nikki Haley, he becomes her VP, and she loses to Trump. He would be screwed in terms of his future in politics. I mean, he's already lost so much entering this race and really struggling to perform, not even at this point in second place. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, the establishment is able to get this to a Trump versus Nikki Haley, head-to-head race, because that's what they're trying to do. It's a thing that they didn't do back in 2016, and it ended up costing them with all the other candidates in the race. They all split enough of the establishment vote to where Trump could come in as an outsider and win and be the Republican nominee. And now we're at the point to where so many people like Trump, it's probably not even going to matter if it is a head-to-head matchup between Trump and Haley. You can take a look. This is where Nikki Haley is looking. It's New Hampshire. Undoubtedly, she's going to lose Iowa. Trump's going to win probably by around 25, 30 points. But you take a look at New Hampshire with Chris Christie out, most of that 11%, possibly like all of it, is going to go to Nikki Haley, and she's going to be up into the 40s. You can see Trump at 43%. Let's say DeSantis also drops out after Iowa. Depending on how that vote gets split between Trump and Haley, she could possibly win New Hampshire, which honestly really wouldn't matter. I mean, if you go back to 2016, Trump lost Iowa to begin that, presidential campaign. So it's not like losing one state in the primaries really matters all that much, but people are going to make a big deal about it. The question is, when you look at the overall, this is just the popular vote in terms of the Republican nomination. The issue that Nikki Haley is going to have, Trump is over 60% just in terms of the popular vote. So that's obviously a big problem if you're going against someone head-to-head and you eliminate all of the other candidates. And, Trump's already got 60%, so he's already winning no matter what. The most you could get theoretically is like 41 or, at this point, 39% of Trump's at 61. This is just an average. Polls, they're not 100% accurate, but it does give you a good baseline on how things potentially could play out. So DeSantis' vote, if he does endorse Nikki Haley, she could get most of his. She's going to get all of Chris Christie's. Hutchinson is such a non-factor. And then there's also Vivek. The interesting thing with Vivek, my prediction right now, if he does not perform well in Iowa, I think he drops out pretty much immediately and endorses Trump. If he does surprise in Iowa, which honestly he might because of the amount of campaign events he's had there, I think he's going to stay in. But the issue is, if, let's say, the final three are Trump, Haley, and Ramaswamy is going to be siphoning votes off of Trump. All the people that are voting for Ramaswamy, if he drops out and endorses Trump, will undoubtedly go to Trump. So if you're Trump, that could be a little bit of a thorn in your side if DeSantis does drop out and endorse Haley. Not that it's too horrible, because Ramaswamy at this point only getting 4 or 5% of the vote, although in Iowa I've seen a few polls with him up around 8 to 10%. This is just all political strategy going on how this is going to shake out if it is a head-to-head of Trump versus Nikki Haley. The other issue is when you look at the other primaries, you can see Trump in South Carolina already above 50%. He's at 52. Just an average. It's not perfect, and they haven't done a poll in a few days in South Carolina, but you just get a snapshot. If he's already above 50%, if you're going against him head-to-head, that's a big problem, unless you can switch voters' minds. I'm guessing, this is my thought, the establishment is hoping if Nikki Haley can win New Hampshire, that's going to give her momentum, and that's going to win over a lot of maybe people that are slightly leaning Trump right now. It's just my prediction on what they're probably thinking. And then Michigan, it's even more of a landslide. Trump at 61% of the vote. You have DeSantis at that point in second place, and then Nikki Haley is at 10%. So 61% to 10%. If it does become a Trump versus Haley matchup, number one, I don't think she's getting all the DeSantis vote, because I think DeSantis is going to endorse Trump, because if he endorses Nikki Haley, maybe becomes her VP, she loses to Trump. It's just such a terrible weak look for DeSantis. I don't know what his future in politics is at that point. He could, lick his wounds, say, all right, whatever, I lost to Trump. Let me just endorse Trump because he's very likely going to be the nominee. Most of the DeSantis support probably will go to Trump. No matter what DeSantis does, it's probably going to be split somewhat evenly unless DeSantis does do something radical like become Nikki Haley's VP. And then this is something I noticed. A lot of people, the narrative going around the past 3 or 4 months, Trump and his performance just in terms of the popular vote general election polls against Biden, you can see now it is virtually even. And this is not surprising at all. We expect the 2024 election going into election night to not know who's going to win. It's going to come down to about 60,000 votes if you understand how the Electoral College works. But honestly, like just looking at this poll, if we were going into election night with Trump +1 in the popular vote, he would be a massive favorite. I don't expect that. We could go into election night with Trump, -3 or -4 on average in the popular vote, and I would still think Trump has a legitimate chance. That's just the way the Electoral College works. It depends how much are you winning or losing. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, Georgia, those are the real important states, and my inkling right now is that those states are going to be complete toss-ups going into election night. There's going to be very little separation in the polls. Now, in 2020, it was a little bit different because we saw a state like Wisconsin, in terms of the polls, lean heavily Biden. I think there was a poll with Biden up by 17 in Wisconsin that came out in October. Now, obviously, a lot of these polls are completely ridiculous and they lean left. And obviously, Wisconsin was within 1 point. Trump almost won it. But in general, I think when it comes to looking at these snapshots and saying, oh, Trump's up by so much, it's just going to come down to election night. It's going to be a complete shit show. Nobody's going to know. And that's what I would say when it comes to that. And then taking a look at other primary, North Carolina, Trump already at 66%. That's an issue. If you're Nikki Haley, that's a big problem. And then South Carolina, Trump at 54%. So again, even if the establishment gets it to where, let's say they get their way, DeSantis drops out and immediately endorses Haley, and it is Trump and Ramaswamy still in the race, Ramaswamy siphoning off about 4 or 5% from Trump. Trump still has such a big base. I don't think it's going to matter. At least these polls are telling us that it really shouldn't matter, even if they do consolidate the DeSantis, Chris Christie, Nikki Haley vote into one person, which would be Haley. She seems like she's the choice over DeSantis. That's where all the money's going, at least recently. You would expect her to still lose to Trump just because Trump's base is so massive at this point now. If it was 2016, yes, and they did this strategy to where it was like a head-to-head, they propped an establishment person up against Trump, I would say that person would have a lot better of a chance to beat Trump in 2016. The issue is Trump beats Hillary in 2016, and he becomes even more popular within the Republican Party, and now it's at the point to where even if it is a head-to-head, Trump versus an establishment Republican, Trump is an extreme heavy favorite in that matchup. If you're over 50%, no matter how many other people are in the race, even if they consolidate all of that vote, it won't matter because you're still over 50%. You're getting most of the delegates. And that's what a lot of these states, the Super Tuesday states, are even bigger blowouts. I've seen Nevada even, which is like the third election that's happening. Trump at around 72% in Nevada. That's with all the others. Although I will say the way they run that election process and just some of these states, the way they do their delegates, the primaries, it's very strange. Nevada's another one that's very odd. And then I also saw this, Nikki Haley, people writing articles, how she can possibly win, what's her path. Her path would be winning New Hampshire. Well, let me just say, DeSantis dropping out after Iowa, immediately endorsing Nikki Haley after Nikki Haley finishes second in Iowa, getting the second most delegates. Then you get DeSantis's vote. You go, Vivek is still in the race, so he's siphoning votes off of Trump. You win New Hampshire, and you somehow get momentum to where, they're going to be pumping so many campaign ads. They're going to be spending so much money. I don't think it's going to happen because at this point, where the Republican Party is, Trump has too big of a base core support. Even if he were to go head to head with Nikki Haley, these polls are depicting and they're showing that Trump would still very likely win. But if you are Nikki Haley, you do need to win New Hampshire. You need that momentum very badly, and that is a state that you can possibly win and parlay it with your home state, South Carolina. Although, again, the polls in South Carolina are not promising at all for her. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.